What is up, guys? Mike Wang here, back with another quick video on Bitcoin. Today I'm going to talk about the worst case scenario that could happen to the cryptocurrency market. I don't think a lot of people have this in mind, so I'm here to talk about Bitcoin potentially going down to 38K levels and Ethereum potentially going down to $2,900 per Ether. Now, I'm just talking about the worst case scenario. I'm discussing probabilities. So don't give me too much hate for for sounding like a beartard, but I think it's worth mentioning. So I want to start off this video by taking a look at the hourly chart on Bitcoin, because we could take a look at the daily, but it's not saying it's not telling us much, not as much as the hourly chart. So if we take a look at the hourly chart, this is a pattern that I wanted to discuss with you guys. When we normally see a parabolic drop, a sharp drop in Bitcoin, what normally happens pattern-wise is basically it drops severely. We have a dead cat bounce to a certain level, the price consolidates, and then it moves up again, makes another leg up, consolidates in this region. And this is a common pattern that happens with almost all sorts of sharp drops that happen throughout time in Bitcoin, right? What's more important here is the make or break point, right? If this continues to make higher lows and higher highs, moving up in a stair-like pattern, then we can confirm that there's a higher probability that this is going to be the beginning of an uptrend. But given that there's a support line over here and we see a leg down invading that region, or we see a complete breakdown and a consolidation below that, that means that we could move further downwards, that there's a higher probability that this is more of a technical bounce. So guys, keep in mind, you need to remember this pattern where we see a sharp drop, a technical bounce off a certain level, consolidation, a small leg up, a second phase of consolidation, and the make or break point over here, right? And that's exactly what we are seeing on Bitcoin's hourly chart. We saw a sharp drop, we bounce back up, consolidation, leg up, and we're consolidating once again. Now we are at the make or break point because this line over here is now resistance turned support, right? Now, if Bitcoin were to break down this level, even if it moves back up again, that means there's a higher probability that we are going to see another leg downwards. Or if Bitcoin can manage to break out of resistance and consolidate at a higher level before showing us another leg up, that would mean that the bottom is in, right? So those are the confirmations that I'm looking at on the shorter time frames. See this support level? It's imperative that Bitcoin keeps this support level, that Bitcoin holds above 50K in order to confirm that the bottom was in at 42K. If we break down this level, even if we move back up again, that's going to tell me that Bitcoin has a higher chance of breaking down that level back again and forming lower lows. Now, a lot of people are talking about, in terms of fractals, how this is so similar to the COVID drop that we saw in March of 2020. So if we take a look at this, this is very similar as well. Sharp drop, bounce back up, consolidation, move up, consolidation again, and it keeps consolidating until it moves up, and that's how we know that the uptrend is confirmed. And if you look at this, the support line isn't broken at this level. So that is how we know that Bitcoin would continue moving upwards, because it keeps forming higher lows and higher highs and doesn't break down the important support levels that it should be holding, right? But we have seen other cases in which this was not the case. So we see a sharp drop over here. This was actually this was a chart from the April top of this year, right? So after we reached 64K, we dropped, saw a technical bounce, and we consolidated at this region over here. Now, what we needed to see was another leg up and a consolidation, right? Leading to another breakout if we were to be bullish, right? But that's not what happened. See this support line over here? That was broken, and that is why we saw a move down to 30K levels in this case. So those are the confirmations that we need to be looking for. Again, we have a support region over here. We dropped, consolidated, broke back up again. We're now consolidating. We might see a leg up, we might see a leg down, but depending on what we see, that's going to provide us confirmation to position ourselves in the market. Now, if we zoom out to take a look at the daily chart, I'll just put it this way. I don't want to be overly bearish, but if someone put a gun to my head and asked me whether Bitcoin was going to drop or whether Bitcoin was going to pump, I would say that there is a higher probability that Bitcoin would drop. Now, hear me out. Here, HH, higher highs, HL, higher lows, LL, lower lows, LH, lower highs, right? So we've been forming higher lows and higher highs on the daily chart if you take a look at this. So this is like textbook, like this trend is beautiful, right? But with the 40K wick, we actually broke down that level. So you see this trend line marked in pink. We've actually broken down that level and we formed a new lower low, right? So now this trend line isn't support, it's resistance. And normally what happens when a trend line breaks is we move in an uptrend forming higher lows and higher highs. We break down the trend line, we retest the trend line, which is now support turned resistance, and capture liquidity in order to move downwards further. That's how price actions normally work, right? So if we take a look at this, what happened yesterday when we tested 52K, this essentially to me looks like a retest of resistance in the form of a pullback, nothing else, right? If we look at the short-term trend, we formed a higher high over here, and ever since we've been forming lower lows and higher lows, right? So we formed another lower low here. So this move up here should be interpreted as a lower high unless we see a movement like that, in which that case, that would confirm that this movement over here was bull trap. But I think that there is a lower probability that we're going to see a price action like that. We're simply forming lower lows, lower highs, another lower low, another lower high that needs to be confirmed by moving downwards again, right? So on the daily, I see a lot of people on social media who are overly bullish because we moved from 42K to 52K in a matter of a few days. But truth be told, I don't really think there's any bullish confirmation for me to say that the bottom is completely in. Now, the way I would change my mind is if we could see a break above 53K, right? And we secure this trend line again, and even in that case, actually, even if we do secure this trend line again, we would have to see if Bitcoin could break through the 60 to 61K resistance, right? We could even see another long phase of correction, that consolidation that takes place within this region. If we were to break through 53K, and if we do break through 61K as well, that would mean that we resume to the bull trend with a massive fake out trapping the bears, right? But I think that's more unlikely compared to the scenario that I have in mind. This is the chart that I shared on TradingView. I've provided my explanation on this in my previous video. If you haven't watched that, check that out. But basically, the idea is that when we see an impulsive corrective move, there's another move that takes place in the same degree to the same extent. And that allows us to identify tops and bottoms, right? So using that technical symmetry theory, that's the concept that I call it, we could expect a move down to 37.8K or 38K just to round it up, right? And I don't think 38K is a number that a lot of people are expecting, but it also aligns with the 0.786 Fibonacci support, which also marked the bottom for the previous correction as well. So taking into consideration the fact that we're in the same trading range, I don't think this is unrealistic. And even a move down to 38K would still keep the macro bullish trend intact because this would be an ABC running flat correction pattern. Now, the reason why I think Ethereum could also drop severely is because if Bitcoin drops to 38K, that's going to be a negative 25 to 20% move from current levels, right? And if Bitcoin drops 20%, I know that Bitcoin dominance has been low recently, and while Bitcoin was lagging, there were altcoins that were outperforming Bitcoin. Well, actually, most altcoins were outperforming Bitcoin. But if Bitcoin moves down 20%, there's no way that everything else is going to remain structurally the same, right? Not at least not in terms of the USD pair. So if we take a look at the ETHBTC chart, just to put everything into context, it's very, very bullish, right? But what this shows is how Ethereum is bullish relative to Bitcoin. Compared to Bitcoin, Ethereum can outperform is what this is saying. This doesn't imply, just because the ETHBTC chart is bullish, it doesn't imply that the USD pair is going to continue to rise. Okay, so that's something you guys shouldn't be confused with. So what we saw here is a consolidation pattern leading to a breakout, right? And normally when we see a breakout, there's almost always a retest of the resistance turn support. So it consolidates, it consolidates in a triangle like this and it breaks out, right? And there are trend lines to demonstrate the support and resistance of this pattern. And once it breaks out, it doesn't just keep moving upwards in a straight line. There's almost always a form of correction, a pullback that retests the support, right, before it can move up again. Just like how on the daily chart, I was talking about a pullback, a retest of resistance before we can move down. That's how the markets always work. Markets don't move in straight lines, right? So taking into consideration how patterns work, we could expect to move as low as 0.07559 on the ETHBTC chart, right? And what that would mean is that Ethereum's price would be 7.559% of Bitcoin's price. And if Bitcoin's price is at 38K and Ethereum's price is 7.56% of Bitcoin's price, that gives us $2,872.8 US dollars per Ether. Now, this may sound crazy considering the fact that Ethereum is currently trading at $4,330. But if you actually take a look at the Fibonacci numbers, right, connecting the swing low to the swing high, that's located almost exactly at the 0.618 Fibonacci support, right? So an uptrend and a 61.8% retracement, that's actually very normal. That sort of price action isn't bearish at all. That 61.8% correction before a further leg up, I mean, if we're talking about Ethereum potentially reaching $10,000, $20,000, $25,000 per Ether this season, this bull market cycle, then that 61.8% retracement is actually very realistic. That's, if I were a whale, that's the type of price action that I would want to demonstrate in order to shake out the weak hands. The structure is too good to be true right now. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to $2,910 and that there's no exception, right? I'm just talking about the worst case scenario that could happen. This $4,000 support held like a champ, right? But it could be broken. It's been tested before, right? During this drop over here, we dropped to $3,500 per ETH. But if we see a move up and a 61.8% retrace, that's still very healthy in terms of the macro cycle. And that's also very realistic. So guys, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist saying that Bitcoin is going to 38K levels and how Ethereum is going to 29K. $2,900. But I'm just saying those are very realistic scenarios that we need to keep in mind. Those are the worst case scenarios that could happen. And by worst case, I don't mean that the bull market is going to be over. I think there's a 99.9% chance that the bull market won't be over even after a drop like that. And it still isn't. But if you're thinking about us seeing 60K next week and then 100K before the end of the year, and we actually move down to tap liquidity and demand at 38K, that's going to mess you up mentally, right? So you need to be prepared for the worst. You need to have the worst case scenario in mind. And you also need to know when to be bullish and bearish, because if anything, like I said, if I had a gunpoint to my head and I had to choose if I was bullish or bearish, I'd say bearish because we broke down the trend line and we're retesting it in the form of support. And I haven't seen any bullish confirmations yet. We didn't test. First of all, we need to break and close above 53K, and we didn't even test 53K, right? And even if we did break and close above 53K, we would still need to break and close above 61K in order to confirm that we have resumed to the macro bullish trend. but we didn't. And even on the hourly chart as well, if anything, this support line needs to hold. If we break below 50K again, I would say that there is a high probability that we see new lows, because this would have been a lower low, this would have been a lower high. And we would move on to see lower lows again. At 38K is what I have in mind, if that does happen, right? So know when to be bullish, know when to be bearish. You need to know when you can confirm that the trend is bullish or bearish, right? And don't get emotional. And don't get bullish at resistance and bearish at support. I don't understand. People panic sold at 42K, and now that the price bounced to 52K, they don't realize that this is a retrace, right? They don't realize that this is a pullback retesting resistance. They're all euphoric here. They're talking about how they're going to buy all the altcoins. They're talking about 100K before the end of the year. I'm not saying that that's not going to happen. It's only a matter of time until we reach 100K. But we need to know when to be bullish or when to be bearish. If anything, like I said, this is a time to be cautiously bearish, if anything, right? No bullish confirmation has been provided. Neither has there been any bearish confirmation. So don't get emotional, guys. And I just wanted to get this video out so that you guys could all have a general picture in mind of what I'm seeing. And I hope you guys can understand that. I don't want to scare you all off. I do think that the macro bullish cycle is still very intact. And I don't see this cycle ending this way in this trading range. But if you could have the opportunity to buy Bitcoin at 38K and Ethereum at 3K, why would you want to buy at these levels? You know, I really don't think this is a time to aggressively buy. Not at least until there is bullish confirmation moving upwards. Okay, so that is it for today, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you found this video to be helpful, make sure to smash that subscribe button and obliterate that like button as well. And if you haven't yet, make sure to check out my newsletter where I am coming up with a newsletter soon. I'm writing up a piece on macroeconomics and how the Fed's tapering and raising and cutting rates could affect the cryptocurrency market and how that could lead to the entire collapse of the financial system. I think it's a very good piece. I really want a lot of people to take a look at it and give me their thoughts on what I think. I really try to provide a lot of free alpha to you guys. Well, it's not free. It's $25 a month, but I think that's very affordable considering the quality of the content that I provide. So if you haven't yet, make sure to check this out. Link in the description to this video. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. I just hope you guys don't get too emotional and buy resistance and sell support. Make sure you refer to this video as time passes by so that you know when to be bearish and when to be bullish. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.